So you want to start reading science fiction. Maybe you saw the new Dune movies and had a friend that said the movies were good, but the books were better. It was me. I was probably that friend. Well, you've come to the right place because today I want to give you 14 of my picks for a jumping off point in reading science fiction. In this video, I want to give you an idea of some of the best places to start reading science fiction, help you figure out which style of science fiction you're into, and hopefully find a subgenre that you enjoy and that you can keep on coming back to read more and more. My name's Tyler, and I've been reading science fiction and fantasy for as long as I can remember, on and off. Over the past 10 years, I've read over 40 books a year, and in that time I've read hundreds of sci-fi books. I read The Martian back in 2017, and that is what kicked it off for me, and I haven't stopped reading science fiction since. I've got here a mix of subgenres of science fiction so that hopefully something here will connect with you, and then you can delve into that subgenre or any of the others as much as you want. I've sorted these from shortest to longest, so if you want to do just a small dive into science fiction, you can start off really short. If you really want to go hard into it, you can start off really long. These are all books that I have read, but I haven't just picked my favorites. I really tried to pick the ones that I think will get you off on the right foot, won't be too technical as far as the language used in science fiction, just in case, and will really help guide you through the different books and different styles that are out there. I really tried to pick the books that I think will make you fall in love with sci-fi the same way it has made me fall in love with it. Our first book is the Murderbot Diaries. The first book in this series is called All Systems Red. In a corporate-dominated spacefaring society, planetary missions have to be approved by corporations. For their own safety, exploratory teams need protection by company-provided security units, or SEC units. In this story, a team of scientists is conducting tests, and they bring along the company-provided SEC unit, who happens to be one that has hacked its own governor module and is trying to figure out who it is, and it has named itself Murderbot. Murderbot almost fits into kind of that cozy sci-fi adventure. There's a lot of humor, a lot of downtime, but there's a fair amount of action as well. So if you want some of the hand-to-hand combat or the spacefaring action, this is going to have some of it without overwhelming you with it. We follow Murderbot, who, like I said, is a SEC unit who just hacked its governor module, meaning that it has no protections against essentially killing everyone around it. We see the world through Murderbot's eyes, who has a scorn for humans and really just wants to be left alone to do whatever it is that they want to. Their scorn for humans really comes from the fact that humans just keep trying to die, and Murderbot is not supposed to let them die. All Systems Red is the shortest book on our list, and it lets you dip into sci-fi without too much time commitment. However, it is part of a longer series. If you enjoy it, you can dive in, and each book is pretty short as well. The exception being the last book. I think it approaches kind of a regular novel-sized book. If you've ever found yourself burnt out on a job, or not wanting to interact with others, or simply wanting to watch TV instead of address your responsibilities, you're going to find a kindred spirit in this half-robot, half-human who could kill everyone around it, but really just wants to watch the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon. Our second book is A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. Now this is part of a 2-book series, so I brought both out just to show they are both very small. Almost the shortest on the list, barely inched out by Murderbot. Centuries before, robots have essentially left humanity and just walked away from anything that they do for humans. They wandered en masse to the wilderness, never to be seen again. Robots faded into myth and became kind of an urban legend. Now we follow the life of a tea monk who is just trying to find themselves. They're in the middle of telling their story when their life is upended by a robot appearing seemingly out of nowhere. That robot is there to honor the old promise of checking in on humans and asking, what do humans need? The robot can't go back until it's answered that question, and it really needs to ask many times and to many different people. This series really asks, in a world where people have everything that they want, what do people really need? This is another very powerful but short story. That way, if you want to, like I said, just dip in a little bit, it's very short, not a huge time commitment. This might be one of the less sci-fi books of the picks here. It reads almost like a fantasy, but it has sci-fi elements like the technology, I think they call them phones or terminals. It's got sci-fi vibes, but also has a slower pacing. It also doesn't have a lot of action. This is truly in that cozy sci-fi subgenre. Both of these are very easy reading and are reading that encourages you to slow down, empathize with others, and maybe have a cup of tea while you're reading. Now, I love both of these books, but I really didn't pick them because of my love for them. I just really think that these are books that most people can find something to like. Now, that said, if you're looking for something with lots of action, if you're looking for kind of a military science fiction or something like that, this isn't going to cut it for you, but I do think it has something to offer to most people. These books are really just books that give you the permission to do what's best for you. Next on our list, we have Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's kind of hard to not suggest Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when it comes to sci-fi. This is about as classic as it gets. Seconds before the Earth is demolished to make way for a galactic freeway, Arthur Dent is picked off the planet by his friend Ford Prefect. This friend is a researcher for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where we get our name. Together, these two journey through space, aided by the quotes from A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They answer the questions: why were we born? Why do we die? Why do we spend so much time wearing digital watches? This book is full of gags and running jokes, and it's got all of the humor of some of the other books with a little bit more touch of the space opera vibe. The good news is, again, this is a pretty short and easy read. There are more books to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've actually not read any of them, but I do really enjoy this one. This really is a classic. It's got tons of running gags, tons of jokes, and admittedly some goofy sci-fi elements. It does seem like this book tends to be a little bit polarizing, but I do think it's a great first step into kind of what some of the lighter side of sci-fi can have and some of the kind of roots of the genre. Our next book is SlaughterHouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. SlaughterHouse-Five is an American classic. It's one of the world's great anti-war books. It centers on kind of an infamous World War II firebombing of Dresden. The novel is the result of Kurt Vonnegut really describing a 23-year struggle to write a book about what he witnessed as an American prisoner of war. This book combines historical fiction, science fiction, autobiography, and some satire as well. SlaughterHouse-Five is really one of the only classics on the list. It's one of those that you may have read in high school. And the reason I included it is I do think that this book is highly digestible. It can appeal to a pretty wide range of audiences. And that's because it combines those several genres: historical fiction, science fiction, autobiography. I think there's something here for a lot of people. A lot of the things described in the book were things that Vonnegut experienced himself, right up until the time travel part of it. This book is full of quotes, lessons to be learned, and it's staunchly anti-war and both entertaining and at times haunting. Another pretty easy read. We are still in that short reads. This is still stuff to really whet your palate as far as sci-fi goes. So the next book is Old Man's War by John Scalzi. John Perry did two things on his 75th birthday. He visited his wife's grave and he enlisted in the army. The good news is that humanity has finally made it to interstellar space. The bad news is that planets to live on are scarce and aliens are willing to fight tooth and nail for all of them. So the army now fights both to claim more land for humans and to defend Earth. Everyone knows that when you reach retirement age, you can join the CDF, the Colonial Defense Force. And they don't want young people, they want old people carrying knowledge and skill of a whole life lived. John Perry is willing to take that deal, enlist, and he doesn't have the vaguest idea of what to expect. Because the actual fight is light years from home, and there's not any news of it back on Earth. So this is actually one of the first sci-fi books that I ever read, and this one falls firmly in that military science fiction genre. So if you're looking for action, this is probably our first book that is very action-packed. I think that Scalzi's prose is very easy to get into. There's a lot of humor, a lot of kind of quips, a lot of space action, but it's not strictly space. There's not a whole lot of rules or anything like that. He doesn't get into the rules of, anti-gravity or anything like that. It's pretty pure military science fiction, and the action just brings you along. It doesn't bog you down with much detail. Now, that doesn't take away from the quality or the fact that it is a science fiction. All of this is still occurring. There's just not a whole lot of detail that you need to follow. You can kind of just read this book for what it is. This book is another that is part of a longer series. I think this one stands pretty well on its own, but if you end up liking it, I believe there's much more that you can read, and the latest one just came out. So lots more to love if you like this one, and then there's a whole genre of military science fiction out there if this is your cup of tea. Whoops. Next we have the Punch Escrow. It's the year 2147. Advancements in nanotechnology have enabled us to control aging. We've genetically engineered mosquitoes to feast on carbon instead of blood, ending air pollution. Earth has kind of become a utopia, and teleportation has become the ideal form of transportation. This teleportation is supplied by a single company called International Transport. This is a secretive firm headquartered in New York. Their slogan, departure, arrival, delight. Our protagonist is Joel Byram, and he is kind of the everyday 22nd century guy. He spends his days training AI and jamming out to 1980s new wave, whatever that looks like, until he's accidentally duplicated while teleporting. Now Joel has to outsmart the shadowy organization behind teleportation and outrun the religious sect out to destroy it. This is probably one of the lesser known books on the list. It sits pretty firmly in that sci-fi thriller. I would kind of lump it in with Blake Crouch and maybe even like a Michael Crichton. It's staunchly sci-fi, but it has a lot of those thriller-esque vibes as well. It also has a really interesting take on teleportation. As you could probably tell from that description, there's a lot of different implications of teleportation that this book gets into, and that is what puts it firmly in that sci-fi, is the kind of future technology. What are the ramifications of this technology, and what are we going to do about them? Punch Escrow is packed with near future technology, those implications of teleportation, and overall pretty easy reading. If you already like thrillers, or if you've read Dark Matter, Upgrade, any of those by Blake Crouch or Michael Crichton, this is probably going to be a good fit for you. Our next book is Ender's Game, and I'm lumping Speaker of the Dead in with it. Our protagonist, Andrew, or Ender Wiggin, thinks that he is playing computer-simulated war games. He is, in fact, engaged in something far more desperate. Ender may well be the military genius that the world needs to eradicate this alien invasion that is constantly berating Earth. Ender Wiggin is only 6 years old, and he's going to have to grow up fast. We jump into this war with what the book calls the Buggers. 100 years in, they have been invading Earth and have been repelled several times, but each time the attacks get worse. Ender and his two siblings are geniuses, and there is a lot that they can offer the world, but there is also a lot of different implications that come with that. Ender's Game is a pretty classic story of the child genius who has something to offer and is somewhat exploited throughout the book. I realize that probably no one is surprised that this is on the list. This is another very classic sci-fi. The reason I bring it up is because while I think Ender's Game is very good, I think that Speaker of the Dead is that much better. And I think that you kind of have to take both of these, and Speaker of the Dead is going to get you into what I would think is a little bit more classic sci-fi, where Ender's Game is going to set it up. So I think that this is a great one to level 1, you have Ender's Game, and level 2, you have Speaker for the Dead. So if you want to kind of step up from the beginner game, you can read this one and then go on to Speaker for the Dead. These books fall into that kind of dystopian, maybe a little close to young adult part of sci-fi, but it's really a little hard to nail down exactly what genre. They also have that kind of military science fiction feel to them. There's a lot of action. There's not a whole lot of downtime in either of these. They pretty much get to the point pretty quickly, and a lot of different implications of space travel and aliens, all of that stuff that you might want out of science fiction. Now, I like Ender's Game, but I love Speaker of the Dead, so I really think that it's worth it to level 1, level 2 these ones. Some of the keen-eyed among you might realize what our next one is, and this is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. by Dennis E. Taylor. Bob Johansen has just sold his tech company and is looking forward to the rest of his life. There are places to go, books to read, movies to see, all of the fun things to do. So it's a little unfair when he gets himself killed by stepping across the street. Bob wakes up a century later to find out that corpuscles, the book's term, don't have rights, and he has been uploaded into computer hardware and is being slated to control the AI of an interstellar probe. If he declines, he'll be switched off and they'll find somebody else. If he accepts, he's going to become a prime target. There are at least 3 other countries launching these probes, and Bob is a little bit worried about that. The safest place for him is out in space, rocketing away from Earth as fast as he can. This is a little bit of a newer entry into sci-fi. I would say that We Are Legion, We Are Bob falls into the space opera and kind of a humorous subgenre. If you like references to other properties, you're going to find that in here. If you're a Star Trek fan, you're going to find a lot of that in here. This book is pretty great for an easy, fast-paced trip through space. There is a lot of kind of fun jargon without being overwhelmingly technical, and a lot of fun jokes, running gags, and a fair amount of action as well. There are also 5 books in this series, so if you like it, you can pick up the others. But again, I do think that this one stands on its own pretty well. The next book is Jurassic Park. I don't really think this one needs too much introduction. I think we all know the movie, the multiple movies that have come out. This is the book that started it all. I think it says it right up here. And that's primarily the reason I picked it. I think that this is a great starting off point for science fiction because a lot of people are going to be familiar with this property already. It's definitely in that thriller category, even leaning towards some horror elements. The book has some more intense moments than the movie does, and I think that it's a really fun ride that you're going to be familiar with, but the book will bring a lot more depth to the story. The characters, as you know, are a little bit out there. The technology is a little bit dated in the book now. It was written in the 90s, but it still provides for a really fun time, and it's kind of fun to see the problems that dated technology created and the issues that they had to get through in the book that maybe wouldn't be issues now. It's kind of like watching Seinfeld or something like that now. The problems in this book and some of those shows would be fixed pretty easily by picking up a telephone now. Telephone? How old am I? Is this gonna fall when I take it out? Might be okay. Our next book is this one, but I had to bring out all 3 because I think they're so good. This is The 3 Body Problem by I don't know how to pronounce that name. The 3 Body Problem by Cixin Liu. This book starts off with the backdrop of the Chinese Revolution. A secret military project sends signals out into space to establish contact with other alien races. An alien civilization on the brink of destruction discovers that signal and sets out to colonize Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth, different factions start cropping up with what we should be doing about this issue and all the political and social ramifications of this alien race coming that is going to take a while, hundreds of years to get to Earth. I was a little bit hesitant to put this in a beginner sci-fi. I do think that this has a fair amount of complexity as far as sci-fi goes. It plays with time in weird ways, and that interstellar travel plays with time, but I think it's very worth it. And if you know the complexity that you're going into in advance, you can kind of take that into account. Maybe know that there's going to be some concepts that are a little bit more complex and that you may have to think about. But I think that this series is so worth it. So engaging, the characters are so engaging, the story is well thought out, it occurs over such a long period of time. It's very incredible how organized it is and how much detail there is. The world is really alive in these 3 books. These are books that I find myself thinking of all the time. There's just such great quotes, such great moments in it. I just find myself thinking of The 3 Body Problem all the time. This ended up making it into the list because I think it's one of the books that if you want to get into sci-fi without it being a pure space opera but want a longer series, this is a great option. A lot of stuff happens on Earth. There's not a lot of space travel or anything like that, but there's very cool scientific and near future technology that gets described in just a very interesting way and in a way that makes you think about what could be coming to the world at some point in our future. The first book is the simplest in terms of Sci-Fi, and it does ramp up as we go forward. So if you read the first one and like it, know that there's some more complexity, but definitely worth it to move on to the other two. Our next book is Project Hail Mary. Ryland Grace is the last survivor on a desperate mission to space. And if he fails, humanity and the Earth itself will perish. Except right now he doesn't know that. He can't even remember his own name, let alone the nature of the impossible task he's been given. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very long time. If I had to recommend one book on this list, I think it'd be this one. Project Hail Mary is at its core a thriller and a novel about avoiding disaster. Andy Weir is one of the best at getting the nitty-gritty details of sci-fi down. He is known for that kind of hard science fiction and really getting details correct. Project Hail Mary is equal parts hard science fiction and humorous action-adventure science fiction. It doesn't have quite the detailed correctness that The Martian had, but it has a little bit more balance, a little bit more of a humorous main character. I've suggested this book to many people, a lot of people who don't like sci-fi, and they end up loving this book. I think that it is probably the perfect entry point into sci-fi because it's just, at its core, it's a story about humans, it's a story about people overcoming big problems, and I think it's really funny and it's got a lot of great moments in it. Andy Weir's writing is very refined in this book. Ryland Grace comes across as very genuine. The other characters really add to the story, and I don't really feel that there's any areas of this book that drag. Its pacing is excellent, and I think that it kind of takes the hard science fiction and makes it approachable by a lot of different people. All that said, I'm confident that this one could make you fall in love with sci-fi. It's a great book. The movie's coming out next year. So this is a great time to read this one and hopefully fall in love with it. The next book is Wool, or the Silo series. The first Wool story was released as a short story back in 2011, and due to popular demand, there was more short stories, and it was eventually made up into a single book and then a 3-story trilogy. This story is really about mankind kind of clawing its way to survival. The world outside has grown unkind. There is something out there that kills everyone outside of the silo, and talk of it is forbidden. There's a lot of mystery, a lot of thriller, and a lot of uncertainty in this book. This is truly another dystopian sci-fi. There's a lot of mystery to what is going on out there in that dystopian Earth. Wool is also the basis for Apple's Silo series, so if you've seen that, you'll be familiar with a lot of the parts of this book. I think that Wool is another one of those that is very welcoming to people outside of the sci-fi genre because it's so multifaceted within itself. It's got a lot of mystery, a lot of thriller, and a lot of undertones of other genres. Wool doesn't feel futuristic, it feels old. There's a lot of technology that has gone away. There's hints that stuff happened before the events that we just don't know about. Fans of mysteries are going to have a good time here because that's the whole trilogy, is just a large mystery on what happened, what is humanity going through, and what is going to happen in the future for humanity. On the whole, the entire trilogy plays that mystery out very well. So if you like Wool, there's a good jumping off point to go to the rest of the trilogy. This is, like I said, a good place to start if you like dystopian or mystery, even thriller, but dystopian and mystery are going to be the two that I think draw people into this book. All right, next to last, we have The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. This is another Becky Chambers book. We follow a motley crew on kind of an exciting space journey and one adventurous explorer who discovers the meaning of family and friendship in the far reaches of the universe in this lighthearted space opera-like book. Life aboard the Wayfarer, the ship in this book, is chaotic and crazy and exactly what Rosemary Harper wants. It's also about to get pretty dangerous when the crew is offered a very lucrative job of a lifetime. Tunneling wormholes through space is very lucrative, but also very dangerous. Rosemary Harper wasn't really signing up for that danger. It wasn't part of her plan. To survive, she's got to learn to rely on an assortment of characters, and this experience teaches her about love and trust, and that having family isn't really the worst thing in the world. If you haven't kind of picked up on it, this is another cozy sci-fi from Becky Chambers. We follow the crew of the Wayfarer. The crew is kind of an oddball assortment of characters of different alien races and different specialties. This book does have a little bit more action than the Monk and Robot series. You're going to get a little bit more of the space opera feel to it, but it's still presented in the very undeniable Becky Chambers style, which is just very welcoming in a way that presents all the characters as characters that you should like. All of the characters in here have something about them that are likable, some sort of lesson that they have to teach everyone, and it's a very heartwarming, easy read. I think if you like the space opera feel, this is going to be a good book for you. If you want something that's not as heavy on action, this is also going to be good for you. If Monk and Robot appeal to you a little bit, but you want a little bit more action, this is the way to go. These are all going to fall when I take this next one out, huh? So maybe we'll do it in parts. So our last series we have, in stark contrast, Red Rising. And Red Rising, I feel, is a great modern sci-fi. It is a great entry point into science fiction. It definitely gets a lot of criticism, and most of it is fair. It is a space opera. It's also kind of an epic fantasy. It's pretty multifaceted. Now, Red Rising, the first book, does get a lot of criticism for just kind of its, at the end of the day, it is kind of a Hunger Games clone. It's got a lot of the same Hunger Games-like feel to it. The reason I'm recommending it is this is one of the books that got me into sci-fi. I think that there is so much to love here. If you've seen the criticisms and if you've seen some of the other things that are said, some of it is fair, but I would encourage you to give it a try. And if you like it, great, because Red Rising itself is the weakest. As you get into, Golden Sun and Morning Star, they get so much better. And then let's see if I can do this here. And then what we'll call the second trilogy, which is going to be 4 books eventually, gets even that much better. It really feels like Pierce Brown comes into his own in these writings, and the story just gets more and more mature. The only way that I can really describe it is as you read the Harry Potter books, they get more and more mature as the books go on. I really feel that this is how this series is. Now, we're talking about beginner sci-fi books, and I'm suggesting a series that is this long. Yeah, that's a fair criticism, and it's something that, if you're not looking for something this long, there's a lot of other stuff to pick from. I think that this book is one that if you read the first one and you like it, you're going to really like the other ones, because I think that they're better. The first book is pretty welcoming in that it's, 368 pages, 370 pages, and then it only gets bigger. Humanity has evolved and gone to the planets and has taken certain groups of people and made them essentially their slaves. And this is a story about the rebellion of that. Like I mentioned, Red Rising the first one is a little bit of a Hunger Games clone. It's really building the world so that you can have a better time in these other books. This series is without a doubt one of my favorites because it matures so well throughout the last books. If you're into epic fantasy, if you like big storylines, if you like that Game of Thrones feel with lots of different families kind of fighting over power, then I think this is a good place for you. We have these two out of order. If you like a long series, if you like epic fantasy, or if you like any kind of maturing story over a long time, this might be for you. If you don't like lots of action, if you don't like a lot of the kind of more complex space action and stuff like that, this might not be for you, and there's a lot of other good options in sci-fi for you. Pierce Brown has really written a cast of characters that have grown with him as he grows as a writer. So that is the end of our regular list. I think that there is a lot of great jumping off points to sci-fi here. Lots of great books and lots of different genres depending on what you like. I have a couple of honorable mentions that I wanted to include, but I think that these they either have a little bit more complexity, maybe a little bit harder to read, or maybe just don't fully fall into sci-fi, that I just wanted to mention as kind of some places that maybe you could go once you figure out what you like. The first is 1984. I think it's really hard to not mention 1984 when it comes to science fiction. It's just a classic. I also think a lot of people have probably read it. I think this is a great place to to go kind of after you've figured out what you like. This one is a little bit more of that dystopian novel. Most people probably read this, so not a whole lot of new news there. Another honorable mention is Foundation. Now Foundation, kind of another classic. This is a little bit of an older book, also a series on Apple now. The reason it didn't make the main list is it's pretty complex in that there's a lot of different things going on with the length of time that's involved in the book. Lots of time passes, hundreds, thousands of years pass. So it's just a little bit, I found it a little bit harder to read, a little bit harder to keep up, but very good speculative, far future science fiction if you end up liking that sort of thing from any of the other books here. Another honorable mention is The Martian. I mentioned this during Project Hail Mary. This is the book that got me into science fiction. So I wouldn't count it out. It's very good, but it is very much hard science fiction. There's a lot of technical jargon. There's a lot of times when Andy Weir just spends a lot of time talking about the specific things that have to happen when something goes wrong. This is a great book about survival at its core. It is a man versus nature kind of survival book. The movie is also fantastic. So, you know, if you like Project Hail Mary in particular, I would say this is a great next place to go. If any of that technical stuff sounds compelling to you, this would be a great starting off point, but I think for the masses, this might not be the best starting off point. Another honorable mention is Dune. Another one that I just can't make a list about sci-fi and not mention it. Dune, if you've seen the recent movies, this is the book that started it all. Dune is one of my favorite novels, but it is just highly complex. It doesn't have as much action as you might expect if you watch the movies. This is kind of a political thriller at its core. Spice is the thing that allows everyone to travel through space, and Arrakis, the planet in question, Dune, is the only place where you can get it. So this book, definitely a great sci-fi to read if you discover that sci-fi is your thing. This is not necessarily the place that I would suggest you start, because it's very dry. It's written I should say parts of it are dry, and it's written in a very kind of complex way in that you get everyone's perspectives at the same time. So there's a lot going on, and Frank Herbert tends to let you speculate on things more than explaining. So there's a lot of gaps that you kind of have to fill on your own. So if you get into sci-fi, definitely suggest you go read Dune. I wouldn't start out with it right away. And our last honorable mention is here because I think it's just that good. It is Stormlight, It's Way of Kings. I was going to put this in the main list because I think it's actually pretty good for beginners. The reason it's not in there is it really sci-fi? No. But I think that as the series goes on, you get a lot of those sci-fi elements. And if you like this series, I think that there is something in sci-fi for you. Brandon Sanderson really has a way of talking about fantasy in kind of a sci-fi way. So I think that there's so many sci-fi elements. That's why I almost put it in here. This is a very long book as well. I think that this one is over 1,000 pages. The series itself is probably close to or over 6,000 pages. There is a lot of reading to be had there. So there you have it. These are the 14 books that I think are great starting off points for science fiction. I know I missed some, so if I did, let me know in the comments what you suggest to people just starting off. Let me know what kicked off science fiction for you, but I hope if you are just looking for something to start reading, you find something here, short to long. There is something here for everyone. I love sci-fi, and I love that while it's entertaining, it also usually has a great lesson to teach us about the world that we live in or something that could happen in the world in the future. I hope that one of these or all of them are something that you feel you could get into. Hope that you'll pick one of these up and fall in love with sci-fi the same way I did. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you in the next one.